Alright, so today I want to talk about something that Anders messaged or asked about on Discord. Let's see. Oh, why do I see that screen? I don't know. Let's see. I think Anders wrote it. Let's see. Gun. What? Well, basically he asked about compositions, and so in Anders' example, he mentioned how sometimes you have a main comp. So right here I just have a composition, very simple, just a wavy, Bezier kind of grass. Let's see, I am getting messages. Okay, so I just have a very simple shape as the grass and some trees, and the trees grow up, and maybe let's say I have the trees on a separate precomp or separate comp, right? And I have the grass here. But let's say in this scenario I can't see where I'm placing the trees, kind of. So how would I figure out if I'm in this comp that I'm placing it kind of in the right area? Or how can I see it? How can I see the main comp even though I'm working in a pre-comp? Okay, so very, very simple actually. So here in the composition panel, there's a small icon that has like a lock on it. So if I press on the lock and I now double click to jump into the pre-comp, if you pay attention, wait, let me do that again actually. So I have the lock activated and I'm going to double click on my pre-comp, but I want you to pay attention to what's happening here, okay? So keep your eyes here. I double click. So another composition window pops up. It's a separate one, so I still have my locked one, but I get a new window up. But now I'm inside of my pre-comp, but I can still see this composition view. So now I can, for example, let's say I want to maybe duplicate this tree. So I'll duplicate it, just move the layers. I'll maybe offset the timing. And now I can, here, I can push the properties up. And now I can move it around now. It is a bit, like as you can see, I'm not getting like the live preview update. So if I'm in this composition, you see if I change a property, it's like updating live. But in this view, it's only updating after I've done the change, kind of. But this is like one way to, well, see what's happening in the main comp if you have this kind of structure. But it's a very niche kind of solution, but let's see, I can also drag this. So I have the composition window. I can drag this window, dock it to my side here. So now I can be in this view, move it around, and still like see in my main comp what's happening as well. So that's like a different solution. It takes up a lot of screen space, so it's not optimal. But okay, that is basically just the answer to Anders' question. Alright. Now I think I want to show you a expression that I find really helpful. So I'm just going to change the color here, the background color. Okay, so let's maybe add a very simple circle. I'm gonna change it from being a gradient to just a solid. Let's make it a more fun color, like dark-ish, greenish, I don't know. Okay, so So let's change this name to ball, maybe. And I'm just gonna do a keyframe. So I'll here's maybe the starting position. I'll add a keyframe, move forward 1 second, push it down, and then I'll copy the first keyframe again. Like I'll select it, do lasso selection, Control C, move to the 2 second mark, and paste. So now I've created 3 keyframes. Would be nice to have easy ease, so I'm just gonna hold F9 when they're all selected. Speed graph, let's see. Select all of them. Change the influence. A little bit smoother. Okay. So now we have our animation. Let's say we're happy with this, but I want this animation to continue. Like I don't want to like copy paste all these keyframes over and over and over again. So we can use an expression that's super useful. So I'm gonna hold down Alt. I think it's Option on Mac, and click on the like timekeeper icon. And the expression that I'm gonna showcase is loop out. So you can write loop, and you get this suggestion box pop up, and you can use the arrow key. So arrow down, press enter. And we need something to, because if we just watch the animation now, it's going to loop, but we can type in within here. So if we press the quotation, so you see like these quotation marks, we get a different menu up. So we can have it continue, we can have it cycle, we can have it offset, and we can have it ping pong. So maybe ping pong is basically the same thing. You can put cycle. There's not gonna be like any visual change because the animation is too simple. I can change this value here just so you get like a better idea. So this is what cycle does. Is it just looks at the first keyframe, second, third, and then after this keyframe ends, it will start from this keyframe again, this first keyframe again. So let's type in ping pong now, and it's gonna look like this now. So this is like a super handy way. I'm just gonna remove it. So this is the cycle one. I'm gonna copy the first keyframe again. Okay, so now we have this animation we had before, but now it's looping. Perfect. So now we can, for example, duplicate this, offset it. Oh, this is pretty important. So if you want to move something, so I here have selected ball 2, and I try to move it, because I'm moving it by influencing the position, I'm also changing the keyframe value. So to effectively kind of change this ball's position pretty easily is just to select all the keyframes and then do your transformation change in the position value. Then we can duplicate this third one, select the keyframes, offset, duplicate, select the keyframes, offset. Okay, so now we have 4 balls basically bouncing. And what we can do is we could, for example, go to the beginning. We can offset this, so I'll push it away 3 frames, then like 6 frames, then like 9 frames. But now they're invisible, so like if I play, they kind of like pop in, but now they have like a interesting offset. to fix so they don't or aren't disappeared, all of them, is you can just drag this end in. So now they're gonna have this offset. Alright, very, very simple, but you can apply this to so many things and make really beautiful and yeah, just clean looking animations. Okay, and this next one is gonna kind of continue on that same note. So here I have a comp called Morales Inspired. I thought it would be interesting to replicate. So in After Effects, if you want to make like a pill-shaped square, you could just make a square with the shape tool. You could come down here on the shape. Here's like an add menu. It has different effects kind of that you can add to the path. So I'm going to add a round corner, and if I increase this value, you're gonna see it's gonna like make it more pill shaped, right? If I now want to, for example, scale this, so if I maybe want it to be more elongated, you could scale it, but you see how the corners are getting warped, kind of ugly, like it doesn't look, it looks kind of weird now, maybe. This could be an interesting look if you're going for this, but I'm gonna recommend, if you want to like transform any path to like increase scale, you can just look in the properties panel. And by the way, if you don't see what I'm seeing, I would just make sure that you're on standard. So I'm just in the standard view right now. So what I would do is change, because here you have the scale, which is basically the same thing I just did, but here you have size. So this is the size of the actual box, and we can uncheck this link constraint, and this way we could make it, yeah, just, you can see like the difference in here. It's like retaining that kind of organic curve, while if we scale it here, we're kind of distorting it. But okay, let's say I am satisfied, I like this pill shape. What you can do is you could just, for example, duplicate, maybe duplicate in this direction as well. So I'm not going for like a super mathematical, like if I were to be like doing this for a client work, for example, I would hit like, I would duplicate it, I would then go open up my position, I would then find the value that I want to change. So I would maybe type plus 300, that was too little, so maybe 300 more, maybe 100 more, so that was what, 700. So now I can just put plus 700, right? So now I have like the exact same distance between them. I could do the same thing here. So you can just put select like the value graph here. You can just type in like plus 700, and it's going to transform it and apply the change. Same thing goes on the way. Like if I want to duplicate this one in the beginning, if you do type negative, I don't think it will work. So like minus 700, yeah, then it's like an absolute value, so you have to select the value, hit your arrow key to like go to the end, like right arrow key, then negative 700. So then it's gonna like base it off the original value and then offset it negative 700. Okay, I'm gonna do it once more. So I'm gonna have like a nice line of, I think I'll duplicate this one more time as well. Okay, so plus 700. Okay, so now I have a bunch of these shapes. what you can do is you could either make a null, for example, to have it all in one layer. I'm just gonna move the null. If you hold down Control, it's gonna start snapping to places. So I can snap it to the middle here, for example. And it is based of like if I select the null here, like it's more in the corner where it's selected. If I hold down Control now, you're gonna see it's gonna snap it to the corner of the null. If I try to select like here more in the top middle, it's gonna snap to the top middle. If I do it more in the corner, again, it's gonna snap it. Okay. So now I'm gonna select all my shapes and parent them to my null. And now I can very easily just do an offset if I want to. Okay. So let's do a maybe start position of here maybe. And then I'll go forward maybe to 2 seconds. I'll move it to here, let's say. Let's preview that. I think the speed feels pretty good. Hit F9 to make it ease. Go into the speed graph. I'll make this tighter. And I'll make this smoother, I guess. And if you're using these handles to like, you can see that it can like go a little bit all over the place. So the key I'm holding when I'm doing my changes is I'm holding Control. So that's gonna like lock it pretty much, or try to lock it. So let's see, 70% influence is gonna probably be nice. All right. So if we apply the loop out expression again, so I'm gonna hit here on my Alt and click on the time icon, type loop out, and now we're gonna use continue. So loop out, I use my arrow keys, I press tab, or you can press enter, quotation marks, and continue. You can press tab or you can press enter. Alright, then I just click out here on like an empty space. So what's gonna happen now, it's going to stop animating even though we have it on continue, because continue actually looks at like the velocity, or well, the exit velocity. So if I increase the value here, you can see that it's 80 pixels per second at the very bottom. It's kind of hard to see, so I could maybe, let's do it pretty dramatic. So this is 500 pixels per second. So now it's going to continue animating 500 pixels per second. We can make it maybe less, so like 170, which is like a pretty nice speed, I feel like. We can also make the influence smoother. Let's see, so now it's gonna be fast and slow down and then keep that speed. So this is kind of like, you can also like, of course, like duplicate this. We could just precomp this actually, so make a precomp, duplicate it, and here in the scale, type negative, so now we're gonna have like an offset. And you could like insert like an image on any of these. For example, if I were to, let's see, I can go to pictures. I have this picture of myself, I guess. No, I would, like, it's kind of weird. I'll just put this picture. So I just went into the precomp, dragged the picture that I like, And you could click here. This is like transparency. So it's going to look like at the alpha, and apply the image that way, so you don't have to have a alpha matte. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna like scale it to around maybe this size. Then here in the track matte, I'm just gonna, let's see, which one is it? So it's layer 3. So I'm just gonna here drag it to layer 3. So now it's like alpha matted. But I probably also want to parent it as well to maybe null 1. Right. So now I could have like a collage of a bunch of different images, and let's say I wanted to have like a different image here. You can go here, for example, select this precomp, reveal layer. So I right click, reveal layer in source project. Let's see. So now it's, if I were like unselected on it, so I here in the project view haven't got it selected. Reveal layer source in project. It's gonna select it here automatically. I can then duplicate it. Then replace. So I'm gonna drag this in to my comp. I'm gonna hold Alt while this comp is selected. Release. So now it's like replaced it. So I could go in here. I could add like a separate image. So this is like a very quick way of adding a bunch of images, and yeah, you could have like a pretty cool animation. And this, if we wanted to add more complexity, let's maybe add another null. So this is maybe all parented to the null. We could maybe scale this in a lot closer. Then maybe at the 3-second mark, we're maybe pretty far zoomed out at like 70%. Gonna select my keyframes, obviously, easy ease. But as you can see, it's like, now it's like cropping. Even though we have like in this comp like a bunch of shapes outside still. But there is this box here in After Effects next to this layer. By the way, if you're like wondering why I can't see parent link, whatever, down here you can like select or unhide. So here it's showing like some of the layers, layer checkmark things. Here's like the control panels, transfer control panel. Here's the collapse, in, out, duration, stretch. This can like take a lot of space on your panel, obviously, so maybe you only have room for one of these. And if you hit F4 by default in After Effects, you're gonna switch. So you see like down here, it's switching. So now it's on collapse layer switches, and it's gonna switch it to the transfer controls. So it's a quick way of switching. But I obviously have room, so I can still have these both selected. Alright, but the point I wanted to get to is, so like these are precomps. In these precomps we have a bunch of layers. But here, so like next to this guy, kind of like it kind of looks like the Kilroy icon. I don't know if you've heard of this, like this thing. So it kind of looks like that. This little guy. And here we have like a sun or like a star icon. So if we check this one, this is called continuous rasterization in After Effects. So it's going to basically just look at what's inside the precomp, and it's going to like, yeah, just let you kind of escape those bounds, even if the composition is only 1920 by 1080. So it's going to like, yeah, enable you to see much more. Okay, so And because we enable this, so if we zoom, I unchecked it, but if I zoom in to 200%, you can see like the text is like very blurred, it's very ugly. But as soon as I check this, boom, it's gonna be sharp. And the shape layers are gonna be sharp as well. Alright, so let's take a look at this animation now. That's maybe a bit slow in the beginning, because it's very fast. So I'm gonna hold Control, drag on this first keyframe, and just increase the influence to have like a similar kind of vibe. Right, maybe that's something that could be used. Alright, so that was just talking more about the loop and how you can do like a different animation. Text animation. Alright, so here I have 2 text layers. I just have a background image where I have added a exposure effect, and so the exposure was set to 0 when you apply it, and I set it to -2 to like have the contrast of the text. So this is a 1080 by 1920 comp. But let's say I want to animate the texts, for example. Let's maybe just animate this Stockholm text. So I'm gonna uncheck this marker right here. And here in the text menu, you have a animate panel. So we can press on this arrow and add a position. Alright. And then we can change the value to maybe -37. Looks good. So we have like a bunch of what we added was this animator property, and we can uncheck or dial down this range selector. And if we now change the offset, you see what happens. It kind of goes from being at, so when the value is at 0 right now, it's being pushed down 37 pixels like down. But if I animate the offset, so I set like a keyframe here, move 1 second forward, turn it up to 100%, and no, I'm not gonna add an ECs on this one actually. I'm just gonna play it now. So now it's gonna like push up 1 letter at a time. Alright, we can untick this advanced menu as well, and here we get like some more options that we can select from, so we can base this animation on the words, for example. So because we have 1 word in here, it's just gonna animate. It looks really slow when it's only 1 word, but maybe make it faster, so I move the keyframe to 12 frames instead. And it's linear right now, so it has no easing, right? We could add easy ease, so that does make it like a little bit smooth, but I'm gonna undo that. So here in the advanced, you also have a ease high and ease low. I wish I could tell you like what they exactly mean, but I am not 100% sure. But I just put like 55 on high, 77 on low. So now you have this kind of easing effect. You could also, let's see how it looks now if I add the ease. Okay, so it's become like very sharp kind of. And one thing that's nice, because let's say we found an animation that we really like, we can select this animator, we can copy it, and depending now, so I'm gonna let this, so this is my called current time indicator, like it shows the name of it if I mouse over it. So my CTI, so depending on where my current time indicator or CTI is, because I copied this one, this animator, if I paste this now, so I'm gonna press U to like show you where it got pasted. It's getting pasted where I have my time indicator. So you could do like something like this. So because they are set to words, so Södra and Hamnvägen, they're separate words, so they get pushed up at different timings. You could add, let's say, because a very common way of animating is to maybe do an opacity fade kind of. So let's see, we have in our text here on the Stockholm layer, we already have an animator, but if we want to, it would be nice to independently animate the opacity, for example. So we could add here on animate, we could add opacity again. So now we get a second animator, right? And it's gonna be a bit hard to see because if we drag the opacity down to 0, it disappears, obviously. So it's a bit hard to see, so I'm just gonna set it to like 25% in opacity for now, just to make it easier to see. And same exact thing, we can animate the offset, move 12 frames forward, set it to 100%. So now this is gonna happen, right? But maybe we also want this to be based on the word. So now it's gonna like slowly fade. But okay, and now I can here select the opacity, drag it down to 0. Right. But okay, let's say maybe I want the opacity not to fade, but just like kind of pop in, like very just kind of harshly. So here in the smoothness, if we put the smoothness down to 0, it's just gonna like appear kind of. And I kind of like this look personally. Like it's super common to have this look in animation. So I'm just gonna select the second animator, go to where I select the Södra Hamnvägen text, paste it again. So now very quickly I made, you know, pretty interesting text animation. Very low effort, and these text animators are super useful to use. I use them like all the time before, so yeah, definitely recommend checking that out. Okay, here is more abstract in this example. So here I have a text layer that says Stockholm, and it animates down and has like this kind of glitchy kind of look. So this is made using a effect. So I select this shape layer here in effect. So I'm gonna actually start from the beginning maybe. So I'll just delete everything except for the text. So let's say I just added this Stockholm text. I'm just gonna actually go to a line, make it center. So there we go. Alright, so now we have basically all I did. Let's say I started from scratch. All I did was write Stockholm with the type tool, made it very big and centered it. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna press P, add a position keyframe. Let's maybe move 3 seconds, animate it to the bottom, and now it's just gonna very linearly move down. It's always boring to have linear keyframes, so again I'm gonna do a lasso selection, press F9, easy ease. By the way, if you don't know what I'm doing when I'm pressing F9, it's basically like going to the keyframe assistant. and hitting easy ease. Alright, and then I'm gonna mark lasso selection the keyframes, go to my graph editor, and just make this a little bit more interesting. So change the influence, so something like that maybe. Okay, so let's say I'm happy with this animation. What we can do in here, so we can add the rectangle tool. So if you double click the rectangle tool, it's just gonna automatically fill your composition with a rectangle of that size. I can delete this. I can make maybe, let's see, so if I hold down shift and I double click, so when you double click it normally, it fills the composition. If you hold down shift, it's gonna make it like a perfect square. So that's like a very fast way. I'm gonna do it on the ellipse. So just make sure that's selected, hold down shift, double click, perfect circle. If you double click normally, it fills out the composition. Alright, but let's say I want just a rectangle to fill. What you can do is you can add a effect called ramp, gradient ramp. Then it applies this effect. You could also just here, there are like different ways of making a shape layer a gradient. So one is here on going to the fill option. Here you can make it a gradient by, yeah, just doing that. But I'm not sure which is like quote unquote best. So yeah, maybe someone else knows more about which is best, but okay, let's use the gradient ramp effect for now. And what I'm gonna do after is I'm just gonna zoom out a bit. So if you like have the layer selected and you're like, oh man, I can't change the position of my gradient ramp. So this is because you don't have the effect selected. So if you select the effect, that's when like the properties, like these kind of points, become visible. So that's like something to keep in mind if you add an effect and you're like, man, I can't see like the handles for the effect. It's because you have to select the effect first. Okay, so we're gonna combine this gradient ramp with a posterize. So not the posterize time, that's also a very useful effect, but I'm gonna use just the regular posterize. And the posterize is basically looking at the black and white values, and yeah, just let's see. It's basically how would I explain this? It's looking at the black and white values, and it's depending on the level you have, it's going to make it into 7 colors, for example. So now I have the value 7, so it's going to be only limited to 7 colors. So 3, it's only 3, 2, just black and white. But let's maybe type in 14 or 8. So we're going to use this as like the base to drive our so-called time displacement. So we can actually hide this layer by just clicking on the eye, like we don't care about it anymore. And in the effects and preset, I'm gonna search for time space. So just put time space bar. So here is the time displacement, and we can drag it onto the text. So this time displacement, it's looking for a layer. So we can select the layer that we had the gradient on, and right now it's going to base it off the fill gradient, but if we didn't have that, it's just gonna, well, animate normally. So basically the time displacement is looking at the black and white values. Alright, so it's looking at the black and white values, And so let's see, here in the white, which is basically a value, you can think of black and white as values. So white is 1, black is 0. So that is like driving the shift in time. So let's maybe, because I don't want it to start in the very beginning, so I'm gonna select my keyframes, offset them. You can see it has like an interesting effect, but we're gonna offset it to maybe 1 second. So now it's gonna be a displacement of the time. But this is using the fill gradient. You might even not have that. So to have the effect, like acknowledge this layer's effects, we have to here, while after we've selected the layer, we have to change it from source, which is basically just looking at the original like black and white values kind of. We have to select it to effects and mask. So now it's gonna be like acknowledging the effects that we added. So now it's gonna do like this cutting kind of effect, which could be cool for like a poster or something. And we can of course very, very quickly like change this by like offsetting the gradient. So it's like a different look. Maybe interesting. So I'm gonna park my current time indicator in the middle. Like find something that's maybe interesting, what fits just like this. I mean that looks kind of cool actually. All right, I just have it flat. Yeah, but there is like a small offset. So if I press Ctrl R, I can get this guide layer down. So this way I can like snap this point and this point. So that way it's like perfectly straight kind of. So let's see, yeah. All right. Let's see, was there anything else? Oh yeah, you could, for example, when you've done, if you wanted to do this animation, you could just put it into a precomp. So I'm just gonna drag this composition over the comp icon here. So it's gonna automatically put it into a new comp. Let's see, the background is not black, so let's make the background black. You could just duplicate this maybe 3 times and just like push it in. So I'm just gonna 1, 2, 3, move it 3 frames, 1, 2, 3, 3 frames. So now it's gonna have like this offset. Maybe I want it more, so like 10 frames, 10 frames. So you can like make something that looks pretty visually like quite complex just by doing a simple repetition. So I actually have this person, let's see. I wanted to like just bring this up. So I saw this post on Instagram by a girl. She's like an art director. I think it's yeah, her name is Valeria. Graphic designer, she's like an art director as well. So here on her Instagram post, she has like some art direction quickies that I thought were pretty cool. So like she talks about how layout matters, framing is storytelling's best friend, make it more dynamic and less boring. So here are like different ways you can do framing. So you can do a close-up, you can repeat objects, you can play with the tension. Tension meaning like I guess like how the weighting of like different objects in the scene. So like here it's like more objects, here it's less and they're smaller, here's like more heavy, they're bigger, like it's more tension. You can center it, you can give things room, you can play with margins, She recommends getting Font Nerd to like just, yeah, learn fonts. Here's like some different layouts. Okay, and she obviously wants you to use Illustrator. But I thought this slide was maybe like the most interesting. Just like in terms of thinking, like if we wanted to do this, like Stockholm, this is kind of like repeating. We could do like a close-up where we like only see STO. We can play with the tension, which is, well, maybe we, instead of animating like this, maybe we animate one letter at a time down. Have it center, very small maybe, give it room, play with the kerning, play with margins, maybe stretch it out. So that could be like a, like already, if we follow all of these kind of different ways, we have like a, finished kind of film, which could be like look very interesting. But okay, let's see, how long have I been recording? 46 minutes, alright, I think that's probably good enough. I don't think, yeah, no one is in the Discord, so no one is here to ask any questions. But feel free to ask any questions on After Effects if you have any. I would love, I'd used this program for, well, since I was like 16, so I've used it quite a bit. Yeah. Alright, hopefully you learned something. Hopefully I wasn't going too quick. I know I can go pretty quick. But yeah, that's just because I've used After Effects for a very long time. Alright, let me know if you want me to include the project file. I can include that. I don't know if there's gonna be interest enough, but yeah. Alright, thank you for watching. Hope you learned something. Let me know if you want me to hone in on like a specific subject or teaching. Thank you. Bye. Later.